So hey, and welcome back. So today I've got a bit of a project that is a little bit different than my normal video. During the winter time, I oftentimes will do a bit of a refurb on, I don't know, different tools and stuff. Block planes seem to have become a thing. And this one is, as you'll see, as you already saw in the title, is a project that I'm going to try and spiff up a bit for my nephew, Riley. He has inherited some different tools from his grandfather and great-grandfather, and I think this one is a great-grandfather from the farm in Rutland. This is a Pexto. I'll be bringing things up so you can see them a little better. My dusty, dirty workbench here. This is about as close as I can get with the picture there. It's in actually pretty good shape. Have no idea how old this is, but it's not rusted too badly. The foot on the I don't know if maybe the shine's making it worse with that. The foot on the base is in pretty good shape. There isn't a lot of rust on things. Some surface kind of corrosion from over the years. It's probably, I'm going to guess, 50s or early 60s that it was made. And it's seen some wear, but not abused too much. Pexto, as far as I can tell, I did a little bit of research online. Actually started back in the late 1700s. There was a Pexto and Wilcox is the company that it more or less became before it decided to call itself Pexto. There was a Seth Peck in Southington, Connecticut, who started making tinsmiths machinery and equipment, and evidently Pexto is still around to some degree making that kind of stuff. And they got into doing hand tools in probably the post-World War II era. Long story short, the Pexto unfortunately were very much a handyman version of tools. They really weren't all that good. So nobody particularly puts any great value on them. So this is not going to be, Riley, this is not going to particularly be a restoration for you to use in your woodworking, but more for just kind of a nice memento to have from the farm and your grandfather, your great-grandfather, and put up on a bookshelf, and hopefully it looks pretty. Many of the parts are pretty similar to Miller's Falls and Stanley. The cap here's not too bad. It's got some surface corrosion. We'll shine that up. You'll see as this will go on. We'll make that look a whole lot better. The blade and the chip scraper. That might take me a little bit to figure out how to get those two to separate. I won't struggle with that on camera here, but yeah, it's a little bit corroded up, but we'll be able to make that look a whole lot better. The screw here, of course, always has some chips on it and dings on it. They always did. They make this thin, flat screw so it fits in the frog, and but it, nobody has a screwdriver that's an inch wide, and so they always end up getting biffed up a little bit. But the blade itself, the underlying metal, is not particularly shiny or well done up, so I'll only be able to get so much in the way of that. But the chip scraper here, I think, had almost a chromish maybe finish on it, so I'll be able to make that look a lot better. And the plate itself is cast iron and relatively machine smooth. There are, I don't know if you can appreciate that, there are these sort of striations that'll look to be purposeful. They look like essentially scratches, but they're purposeful made, but they run in a straight line all the way across. Same thing on the side. And they are, obviously that's how they did the finishing. So getting back to this, the frog, this is the big downside. The Miller's Falls and the Stanley ones, the base on this, the blades on this looks okay. I'll see what kind of metal this is made of as far as when I go to start cleaning it up and putting a polish on it. Some of the Miller's Falls ones that I had, especially, the metal on it was really very hard, so I'm assuming it would have held an edge really well. No idea, you know, nowadays we get jackknives that are all labeled with the type of steel. No idea what it was. But all of this stuff is relatively similar to what I had seen and worked with doing the Stanley or the Miller's Falls. They all were relatively identical, kind of copied each other, and I think Stanley was the one who sort of started that out and set the bar for everybody. Where it really comes in to be different is the frog, the part here that stabilizes the blade, and the mechanism on the frog which pulls the blade up and down and angles it back and forth to make it flat and level with what you're trying to do. Even some shavings from, you know, God knows how long it's been there. But this mechanism here, this dial, is pretty cheesy. It works, but it's not the same to what you'd get on a Stanley. And the frog itself is just sheet metal that's been bent over. It's okay, you know, but it doesn't hold the blade anywhere near as well. And everything I've ever heard, anything everyone else has always said is it's difficult to get the blade aligned exactly where you want it, and it doesn't really work all that great. That's just basically it. It's the frog, which is cheaper to make, of course, because it's just some sheet metal that's bent together, and the knob here is just kind of a stamped. The screw is it's cheap. They got to, you know, cut some corners somewhere, and that's how they did it. And that really lets this particular plane down in terms of performance. But for our purposes here, in terms of renovating it, this is, I don't know if you can really see this, this is remarkably in okay shape. Usually these things I have to spend a lot of time on in terms of taking the paint off. They're all rusty. I don't think I'm just going to clean it up real well, but I don't think I'm going to need to paint this. The screws, I'll have to take those out. Those will all have virtually a mirror polish by the time we're done. And so, you know, you'll be in pretty good shape with this. We'll do I'll refinish these handles. They're a little bit biffed up. The screws are okay. They're not brass. Not that that's that big a deal, but the ones usually from Miller's Falls and Stanley, those are brass, and they look pretty. These will have a more or less a mirror finish on them. I'll clean up these scuffed up marks here where somebody's screwdriver is, you know. Unfortunately, back in the day, all they'd used was slotted screws, and they have, you know, they work, but not great. There's a lot of reasons why that isn't the best choice, but they're in decent enough shape. We'll be able to make that look better, and we'll be able to make it look good. And same thing here, a steel screw. This is interesting. It has a nice little, has these nice little feet on here that hold the front handle in place. Kind of interesting. Miller's Falls has little ridges around there which really grab onto it. Something they used to talk about. The Stanley ones don't seem to have any of that. But overall, the base plate, same thing. Not particularly rusted up at all. A little bit of surface rust again on the front, the sides. We'll do some sanding, polishing. I will take the paint off these ridges all the way around. The back end here is really rough from where the casting was. It wasn't really, it was cast okay, but it wasn't really cleaned up so much. Just something I do when I do these. I'll file that all down. I'll sand, out of the picture here, I'll file that all down. I'll sand this stuff and I'll polish it up so that these edges all the way along and all the way on the back here will be a mirror polish. And then I usually wax everything with a ceramic type car wax so that it doesn't rust. But everything looks pretty good. The handles aren't broken. These horns on these love to break off. So we'll strip the wood down. We'll give it a new finish. We'll clean everything up. The blade and the chip breaker, the clamp, those are all going to get polished. They'll have a mirror polish on it. When it gets all done, you'll be kind of surprised. Usually it looks pretty darn good by the time we're done, and it should be a fun thing for you to have as a memento from your grandfather. So that's the first step. Wanted to show you the teardown, give you something to look at, and I'll do some intermittent taking pictures of me working on it, and we'll go from there. So here we have the base plate. Done a little bit of cleaning on it, taking some of the grease and oil off of it. And there's a few spots that are a little bit rusty and needs a little bit of attention. So I think I'm going to put a coat of paint on the inside here and spiff that up a little bit. I don't know if you can see this. There's a few like spots of paint that are speckled around down in here. Maybe they'll show up better when you see it on the bigger screen, but oddly enough it looks like your great-grandfather probably had this apart at some point and then was doing some painting somewhere and got it all over the place on the inside because the frog and the handle would have normally covered that up. This front corner here, the rust has gotten through. Starting to do a little bit with the bottom of the plate, and it's coming up okay. I'm going to follow that sort of grain as far as the roughness of what it's doing, trying to get it to focus on that. Just go back and forth on some sandpaper, and then we'll eventually keep going to finer grains, and that'll look pretty good when it's all done. That's probably about it. That's a 7,000 grit paper. It doesn't take out all the, I don't know how much of this you can see. It doesn't take out all of the scratches and all of the machine marks, but it makes it nice and smooth. If you were to actually use it, it would work pretty well, and cleans it up pretty nicely. So we're getting there on the side here. It wasn't machined flat. There's a spot here in the middle that has a bit of a divot. That same over here and a little bit of one up here. It's kind of wavy, but it wouldn't matter. You know, if that was absolutely flat, when you look at it, you don't even realize that it isn't flat. You think, oh, that's not too bad, but it's nowhere near flat. But this is almost 45 minutes I've been working on just this side, and I still have, oh, I don't know, three or four more layers of sandpaper to go. It's coming along okay. Clogs up. The metal's so soft it clogs up the sandpaper pretty quick. But we're getting there. Probably going to have to knock off for the evening here. And I'm working for a few days, so I'll pick this up in a few days and kind of putter along with it some more. I'll try to see if I can get this side done tonight, just because it would be nice to get it done, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Probably going to run out of time. That's kind of what I've been running into when I do these things. I get going on this, and it doesn't look like I've done all that much, I suppose. Probably. If you were here holding this, you could see the difference from this side to this side already is, and the finish sort of thing. It's pretty dramatic, but because I do it all by hand, I suppose it could be quicker if I had something that was mechanical. But I don't know, I kind of take pride out of the fact that I can do this by hand. And it won't be perfect. It'll still have some of the divot in here. Because, I mean, I could sit there and beat the hell out of it on the flat surface and try to level everything down. But good God almighty, that's a lot of metal to remove. So probably not going to happen, but we're getting there. So this is about it for tonight and for this side. I don't think I'll go much more with this. So this has been about an hour and a half, and it's certainly not perfect here, but has a bit of a shine on it. And that's probably about all we're going to do. We still have a little bit of that from that low spot there. I would have to take off the metal in the middle in order to bring everything down so I could get to there. And it's just, I'm not going to go that crazy with it. That's nuts. But to give you an idea, that's what we started with an hour and a half or so ago. And that's what you got now. Some of this too, the metal probably I can't get up to a full perfect polish because it's just cast iron. It's got a grain to it that doesn't really want to get there, but when you look at that on a shelf or whatever, it's going to look nice and pretty. Trying to do a little bit of a close up here on this, show you where we're at. Hopefully it's focusing. Let me back up a little. Let you see how it's kind of coming out okay. I think. And again, this is what we started with just a little bit ago. So starting to do some of the cleaning on the blade here. I don't know how much of this is coming out. I'll try to bring it up here a little bit. Maybe show you a little bit of this. But you'll see it, Riley, when you get it. There's all this pitting in the metal, and it doesn't look like, it looks like it would be if it was really rusty at some point, but the metal wasn't that rusty. So I'm kind of of a mind to think that that was just sort of how the metal was made, which is unfortunate because it's really kind of crappy. In order to lower all the surface down to get rid of all these pits and pockmarks, that would just, I'm not going to thin the blade out that much. So kind of an interesting thing with this, but chugging along with it, we're onto the blade. This is, Riley, the most dangerous. This is just about the most dangerous part of doing one of these planes, because the edge here, while I've dulled it down a little bit, is still pretty sharp, and that corner there is actually very crisp and acute. And I've had a couple of times. Your Aunt Tam is always looking at me like, what the heck did you do to your hand? At any rate, coming across on this edge, you catch that little edge there, and you know, zinging back and forth. Man, oh man, I've had times where I've been bleeding all over the place. So we're kind of working on the cap here, the lever cap. Just about done with this. It seems to have come out pretty good as far as I can tell. Hopefully this is focusing okay. Going to leave the back just as it is because it has a bit of a grit to it, you know, that I think is designed to hold the blade a little bit better. Not that that's probably what, this is probably just going to be a display thing anyways, but the front of it's pretty good. Still doing a little bit of work on the lever here. We're just about done. A little bit more, and then hopefully be in pretty good shape. So, working on the chip breaker at this point. Making some progress here to come along okay. The back side I haven't touched yet. And that doesn't look too bad actually. That'll probably come up pretty easily. The front's doing pretty well. We're about middle grit here. Doing a little bit more with it, but little by little it's getting there. So now we're at the screw that holds together the blade and the chip breaker. You can see it's pretty well corroded, but not too bad. I'll try to see if we can do a little bit with the slot there that holds the stuff together. I'll try sort of a medium grade here. And start with this and see what we get. Yeah, pretty well that's coming out okay. I'll have to go through, there's about 4 or 5 other layers of grit to get down, but what will end up with, yeah, nice mirror finish on this. See if I can do this for you while I have you watch it so you can see at least one thing. This is such a small part, that just this one face. I'll take that. So this is 320 grit. Start to see the shine coming up on that. So here we are with the finished screw. If you can see the sides brought up to essentially a mirror polish, and the
top here. I'll try to get it to, that's what we'll kind of be at. I'll clean out a little bit in the slot there where the screwdriver goes, but that's basically it for that one. So one of the last pieces, we're kind of getting into the home stretch here, is the frog. And there's a lot to be done. I'm kind of leaving this with a little of its patina on it. It's got some scratches and whatnot, but a lot of this stuff deep into the underside and here and whatnot, I don't know that I'd be able to get in there so much, so I'm not really going to try. The nut here that you turn to make the changes, the end of it here is brass, so I'll try to polish that up. The part that you put your fingers on is just a stamped steel, and it's the threads on these are really slow, so pardon the moment here it takes to get this off. So that I'll probably try and maybe brush up a little bit. Just do a little bit of a wire brushing, and that's probably about all I'm going to do. I'll try and get the brass part polished up. That hopefully this is focused. But we'll try and get that cleaned up. The threads and whatnot here, I can't take that out, so I'll probably try to see if I can take off a little bit of the corrosion that's on this and shine up the handle there a touch, just a little bit, but there won't be an awful lot that I do on that. Then there's a screw here that's on the other side that is one of the ones that kind of holds everything together as far as that goes. See if I can get this to focus on it. It's focusing on the background, I think, but I won't go too crazy with it. If it won't, it won't. That there's a little bit of corrosion, a little bit of rust on it. We'll get that all polished up. And then the last part of the handles. So a bit of a quick update. The base has been painted here, and I need to do the edges here. I need to make, I want to polish those out. They still have some paint on them and on the edges on the back, so that's coming up. And a bit of an update from doing the, I don't know if I can get this to show. This is the main screw that holds everything together on the frog. It's all polished up now. Thought that came out good. And the wheel that you use to adjust the blade depth, got that shined up there. This here didn't really come up so much, but what I ended up doing was the end here had all kinds of sharp points that were sticking out from after this had been essentially pushed through a die. So I filed it all down and polished it all up, and so you won't even really notice this, Riley, but I guess if you were to look underneath the handle and whatnot, this top edge here is now entirely flat and all polished up. I think it looks kind of nice, but maybe a detail that you won't notice that much. Gonna jump ahead to the handles, kind of get these going, because if I go to when I go to put another coating of finish on them, it'll take a little bit to try and let them dry out. So I'll get started on those, and then I'll come back to the frog and finishing up the base plate. All right, so here I have the finished base plate. Just finished kind of washing it off a little bit. I'll try to see if I can get it so you can see all the rails on the side and on the ends are all polished up, and try to get that to angle in. These were all sort of painted at one time, and now they're all polished up. So and here are the pieces of the handle,
after they've been stained. Got a little too much stain here on the edge. They're a little bit rough. I got to do a little bit of sanding and getting this cleaned up. These were very light wood, both color and weight. Felt like they're almost pine, which it shouldn't be, but This one came out a little better, the knob on the front. I'm going to do, like I said, same thing. A little bit of sanding on all of these, kind of clean things up a touch. And then a coat of spar varnish, and they should be good to go. So here they are, all done up after put on the last coat, drying for after the last coat of spar varnish. We'll let them dry here and then bring them up next to the wood stove to finish once they're not tacky. So here we are at the sort of the wrap-up stage of everything. Just finished doing the polish, or well, putting wax on everything, especially with like the base. All of this is just cast iron, so this will rust in no time flat if I didn't, and it'll probably rust even though I still did it. Handle all the different screws, you know, the ones that go on the end of for the handles. These are all shined up, polished up. They look very nice. So we'll kind of put things together a little bit, and I'll probably edit some of this out because it'll take me too long to do it all, but here we go. You know, we'll kind of put everything together. We've done a little bit of oiling some of these parts here that move, so that hopefully it'll wear themselves out entirely. Put a little bit of oil on screw heads, and so getting back to our one of the first parts of this, talking about Pexto and Wilcox, I figured maybe now would be a good time for me to finish up with some of that. I'm going to have to use a smaller screwdriver. And so we were talking about how it was started out as Peck as a company, then became Peck and Smith Manufacturing, and then in the 1870 there was one called Stowe in Plantsville, and Royce and Wilcox of East Berlin, and they were also competitors in that business. In December of 1870, all three of these firms joined together in a joint stock company under the name Pexto and Wilcox. And in 1880 they were incorporated. Then they had factories at that point in Southington, Plantsville, and East Berlin, Connecticut. And they also had some factories in Cleveland, Ohio. Over time, that was what they were for the longest time. So that's 1880 until about 1950. The company was bought by Billings and Spencer. And then the Pexto logo is now used by RW Acquisition LLC. So I don't know. It's just a name brand at this point that doesn't seem to have too much active anything anymore. So now these screws to put in place here for the frog are supposedly extraordinarily difficult to put in place, and I think I can see why. There's almost no way to get in here and grab a hold of them.
So I don't know how I'm going to do this exactly. Probably maybe I'll go end up getting a set of Kellys. So these are Kelly's clamps. And I think I'm going to be able to get these in here without too much difficulty. I say that, but maybe they will drive me crazy. I think yeah. So we'll snug these down, get these set so that they're, of course you got to set them up so that they match with the opening there for the blade to kind of slide down in. So as we were talking about, Pexto became in the 50s sort of the post-war era, the inexpensive, not particularly high-end. And I got to tell you, I can see why that would be the case, or they would be considered that. This frog is pretty terrible. And everything is just, everywhere you go, just each step, there's a little bit of cheesiness to it by and large. The base seems fine. The frog, definitely not. The wood for the handles, the finish was pretty soft. Whatever it is, you know, it's pretty soft as far as that goes. All the screws, none of them are brass. They're all steel, which in and of itself doesn't mean that they're terrible, but it's a little bit less money. The wood on this, I swear, was pine, even though I know that would probably be really not the thing to do, but I really think it was. It was very, very lightweight and very light in color. That's why I ended up staining this. Usually I don't stain these. I just put some, the spar varnish on it, and that's usually enough. Gives it a little bit of a darker color, a bit of a patina. And the wood itself is usually got a decent coloring on it, so it some schmutz in there. Now let's get a toothbrush, brush that out. But at any rate, set that there. This goes here. So making sure I got this sort of set up the way I think I want this to be. I'm doing all kinds of this off camera, aren't I? And you see, when you'll see this when you get it, Riley, that this is all polished up. All the edges of the blade and the chip breaker. That's one of those things that I take a fair bit of time with. It's probably entirely useless, to be honest. It doesn't make any difference in terms of function, but all of the edges are polished up to a mirror shine, and I just kind of think it looks nice in terms of when you're looking at it. Obviously this is a display more than anything else. So the screws, obviously on this, all the screws are polished up. Let me get the adjustment wheel on back here. We got that a little bit cleaned up and spiffed up, even though it's just kind of stamped sheet metal and not the greatest quality, but and that's the way the whole thing is. Little bit by little bit, you see that little bits are cut corners here and there. The steel on the blade itself, when I was polishing that up, that clearly is not at the same level as what I had encountered with the the Stanley or the ones that came from Miller's Falls. But it probably holds a blade, an edge reasonably okay, but it's not as hard, and that really shows when I'm starting to polish it up, or I'm going through and doing the sharpening, because the steel on some of the other ones is so incredibly hard that it's actually it's quite difficult to sharpen it. This wasn't that. It was okay, but it's not the same. So let's pull that clamp off, snug this down a little bit, thereabouts. Let's see how this sits. I don't know how tight it's going to be. I don't need it to be super tight. And this is pretty much it. After all of that, rather anticlimactic, I guess, but when you see it, I think you're going to be pretty impressed. There it is. The first time in, I don't know, probably been two months or so that I've been screwing around with this thing. Thank you for everybody who's watched this all the way through. I know I've kind of babbled on a fair bit with this, but I'll do a little bit of polishing just to get my fingerprints and everything off of here. But there it is, the Pexto number 2 for Riley, and hopefully you'll appreciate it all. Thanks so much for watching, everybody else, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.